Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have an amazing lady. I've had the opportunity to see her a couple of times now, different stages. She talked about what she does, and I thought that this is an important thing that you guys want to know about. So here we are. I am about to introduce to you Dr. Laura Cobb. Thank you, Laura, for being here. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule for being here. Dr. Laura, tell me a little bit more about yourself, your topic, and how you actually got involved with it, why you think it's important. And we'll go from there.
Well, oh gosh. I'm from Chicago originally, and I went to school at Purdue and Illinois State, and also University of Maryland. I spent a little bit of time in
Wow.
university, and I worked over in Germany. Actually, I went to live over there for 8 years, and had the great fortune of working with the Pentagon and the United States military to help manage and organize a program called Family Advocacy for the U.S. Army. And we oversaw 5 countries, 22 army installations, and about 200,000 individuals, civilians and soldiers, to help prevent and educate regarding domestic violence and child abuse.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said it's the University of Maryland. I grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland. So fellow Terper, basically.
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. So what did you do in Germany?
Well, besides the United States Army and working for the Pentagon, managed the program that helped prevent and educate regarding domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault. I also had a side job as a personal trainer. I ran marathons and I did some figure competitions. I also, during that time period, I was a career counselor for soldiers who were preparing to separate from the military. And besides that, I did a lot of work with the community, with the spouses, and my husband at the time, he was downrange when he went to Iraq twice, and that was uncomfortable, just to the extent that I didn't know the language, and I didn't know much of Sprechen Sie Deutsch, not so much. I get along pretty well, though. I just need to buy some bread, some brötchen, and my Name is Frau Cobb. That's what I need to know
So,
to get
Dr.
through.
Laura, now where are you located?
I live just out of Chicago in the suburbs. I
Right.
actually live in the same subdivision that I grew up in.
Oh, wow. Wow. Cool. So what do you do in Chicago now? What is your main
Well,
focus?
currently right now I'm primarily online, which the pandemic is difficult, although it's just shifted everything. We had this mind shift, that's the brain in the back, that we had to change the way that we worked in the world. And so what I needed to do was to shift my mind and to provide what was in the best interest of my clients. Currently, I'm working as a mind shift and transformational coach. And I'm also a licensed professional and nationally certified counselor. I'm a global speaker and a 2-time internationally best-selling author, and with my beloved cat, and he's such a dear. Thank you, Carter.
He wanted a moment in the sunshine, in the
Correct.
spotlight.
Yes,
That's
yes.
all cool.
Mhm.
All right. So tell me this: when we are going through this, and you are coming from Germany, now you're in Chicago, abusive relationships and things like that, and now you're talking about transformation. How do the two of them relate to each other? Where
That
is the
is
connection?
an excellent question. Well, for the most part, I would say that I'm the ideal client who I work with right now. 6 years ago, I was homeless and I was divorced. I lost custody of my son. And after having earned everything that I ever wanted in the world, little did I know that it wasn't enough. It didn't fill up that hole in my soul. And essentially, I imploded. And after a lot of soul searching, a lot of digging deep, and a lot of work finding out what is it that I truly wanted, because I couldn't get well for others. I had to do it for myself.
Mhm.
And so having that awareness of domestic violence, child abuse, and having a PhD in child development and family studies, I didn't know how to change a diaper when I got pregnant. When I had my son, I didn't know how to care for a child. And ultimately, that was the one thing I didn't have yet. And I was able to receive that. And at the same time, it still wasn't enough. So, how is that related? I needed to shift my mind knowing that spending 12 years in college, extending my adolescence because I didn't know how to grow up. I didn't know how to be an adult. So I stayed small and did what I knew what to do because I was good at it.
Right.
Essentially, it was almost like an achiever's curse because the more that I earned, the accolades, the promotions, my family, everything that I wanted, it's still, the bar wasn't, I kept meeting that bar and I needed to sit with me. And the way I say, the reason why I communicate mind shift rather than mindset is because for so long, all I knew what to do was to set my mind on achieving a goal. And I did it. In fact, I
Mhm.
remember when I walked across the stage, I graduated, and the dean said to me, "Congratulations, Dr. Cobb." And I looked over my shoulder and I realized she was talking to me. And for about 15 seconds, I walked down the stairs and I sat among all the other doctors. Like, this is it. I did it for about 15 seconds. And then on that 16th second, I realized that's it.
Yeah,
I just spent 12 years. I
it's like now
sacrificed.
what?
Oh, so now what happens is I had to sit with me. So that's the thing about it. Running, running, running. The good thing is that I'm a human being, not a human doing. And
Mhm.
so the beautiful thing about that is that needing to sit with me, I was able to seriously consider what was in my heart. And I looked to my education actually in family studies and child development and also counseling. Because when I moved over to Germany, I earned a second degree in counseling and personal services. And that was really a beautiful testimony to that. I needed to listen. And
Mhm.
essentially, that's what I do now. I listen to women's stories. I listen to their struggles from triumph and how they live out of transformation. Because everybody's got a story. I know you
Right.
got a story too. And everybody's got something behind closed doors that nobody knows. I create that safe space for those women to share their struggles in order so they can be so fully full of themselves, they cannot help but nourish others from the overflow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's beautiful. I have a saying I always say, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that's your calling. And I chased a lot of long I chased a lot of wrong ladders in my lifetime, realizing after I've climbed them and been successful at climbing them that that wasn't the ladder I was meant to climb. So,
Well, the higher the ladder, the harder the fall.
right, exactly. And it
And the
takes
heart of the
courage,
fall, maybe we'll figure it out. We get hit
right?
upside the noggin once in a while. It's too much, so that maybe that whisper sometimes isn't enough. Maybe we need a brick upside the head and say that was a hard fall, and then you rise up.
Exactly, exactly. So, so what do you typically see as something that really moves you, that makes you passionate about what you do, in your clients?
That's such a great question. I remember when I was my first time I was teaching at Purdue University. I was teaching courses related to marriage and family. And the look in the eyes, it's a shift, really. It's just like, oh, now I get it. And yeah, sure, there's something about teaching where you impart knowledge and statistics, but it's the wisdom when someone can integrate that information and say, that doesn't work for me so well. But then there's a what? It's like a light goes off.
Right.
And that's the passion that I have when I can communicate my story, because everybody's got something, and I don't
Right.
sit in my shame storm today because I'm able to communicate it. Brene Brown is a huge influence on me, and she talks about that shame, it cannot survive the light. And the more that I see these women who have these struggles and they're so fearful because they're competent, they're capable, and they're confident in their jobs. They know what they're doing. This is not imposter syndrome. Then they
Mhm.
have these stories that they want to communicate and be so fully full of themselves to be authentic and real and vulnerable at the same time. And likewise, transparent. The hard thing about that is those are some of those buzz keywords that people use all the time. And I say that those are the true words. Why? Because when you can really stand in your vulnerability and share space with someone when they're still struggling in that, and then see them like, I see the light. I see the light. I know the light's there. Just hold on and be that beacon of light for others so that others are able to find their way to the shore. And it's beautiful when they dry off and then they just go off and they start running their lives in a way that's beautiful.
Right. And I love the fact that this is something that brings us together as a community. It's that you're not alone, and no
Mm,
man is an island, or woman that matter. And that, by coming together, holding the space for each other, there's potential for all of us to grow together. And that's how humanity thrives, really.
absolutely. I 100% agree that when I was teaching courses, I would facilitate a program exercise with musical chairs. And instead of one person winning, everybody stays in the great game. The chairs are continuing to be taken away throughout the duration of the exercise.
Uh-huh.
Everybody stays in. We realize that we are each other's resources. We can do this
Right.
together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So I know that there's so many accolades and so many expertise and experiences that you come with. So tell us a little bit, first of all, about our audience members that are struggling to make this transformation, this shift. What are the typical things that you see as the signs and symptoms that this needs to happen? And then what would be a kind of like a takeaway message or homework that they can start applying right away so that they can see those differences, so see those shifts happen?
I'll give you three signs and symptoms to look for. Number one, isolation. Is someone who's normally extroverted, are they gregarious, outgoing? Are they starting to implode? Are they starting to retreat? Are they starting to recoil? That's a big sign, because then there's not as many people that they have to report to, and there's not as much accountability. Number two, likewise, it might seem kind of ironic, is that grandiose behavior. That if an individual who normally would be kind of subdued or just kind of like even keeled, a straight shooter, if they start to engage in behavior that is not normative for their typical behavior, it could be legal behavior, legal ramifications, a DUI, or even if it's not substance abuse, but if it's just their behavior is so gregarious that it's inconsistent with their normal daily activity.
Right.
And the last one I would say is that if they're engaging in, or if you start to see signs of external reliability, or using other mechanisms or means to cope, for example, substances, food, it could be codependent behavior, gambling, sex, it could be anything that's not normative, I would be very concerned about. And so then what's the thing to work for is that I'm a hope pusher. There is hope. And I love me some acronyms. And hope pusher means hold on, pain ends. And we do that as long as we persist until something happens.
Okay.
Keep holding on. It does end. It's better.
This too shall pass.
This is one thing we can count on is change. That's the only constant we have. This too shall pass. I love that.
Okay. Awesome. So when people are going through it and you give them the message of hope, is there any actions that they can take as far as either facilitating this or enduring this or whatever they need to do so that they can speed up the process? Sometimes you can't speed up the process. You really have to learn your lessons as you go through them, right? But what can they do to kind of help it along, basically?
You're so these are just slamming with these questions today. That's so poignant. Is that there's a fine line between wallowing in the muck and waiting to exhale. And for some reason, I was able to walk that fine line and bridge the gap between full out, blown out depression, which essentially depression, you switch around the letters, it's I pressed on. It's that mind shift. If something seems impossible, you just add an apostrophe in a space and it becomes I'm possible. It sounds kind of kitschy and it's the same thing. It's just that it will pass. And I would say the number one thing is to outstretch your hand, your arm, and refuse to stand next to someone who's forced to kneel, because at a certain point, we're all going to kneel. And so who was there for you when you needed that hope? Be that hope, be that light for someone else. Get out of self, be selfless. Because when I could be of service, that was my purpose. To serve. And then when I was able to do that, I didn't rely on so much as this is my stuff. Like, good God, morning. It became good morning, God.
I like that. Sometimes, a lot of times when we are talking about enduring, it's important to understand that when you feel abundant, then that abundance kind of spills into your own life. And people who don't feel abundant, the mere act of having generosity, having abundance will really move you and set you on the right course in that sense.
There are many moments throughout the day where I have the comparison to shift the bed tonight. I'm thankful, and I implore you, please don't ever denigrate yourself if you left your car door open overnight, because you may have just given someone a bed to sleep on. I have food today. My toes are not frozen. I see the sun today. And it's the little things. And some of us, I couldn't do it by myself. I needed help. I needed the helping professions. A coach is one thing for sure. In order for me to get well, I needed a counselor, a therapist, a social worker who could take me back and allow me to know why and where I got to where I'm at. And in order for us to do so, it's like a vehicle. You're driving in a car. There's a reason why that rear view mirror is there. We need to look back sometimes to know from where we came, and that something's not coming up on our tail end so we can avoid that.
Right.
And that's why we're here, is how do we get there? We have the side view mirrors. Something comes out of nowhere. That was my peripheral vision. I didn't see that coming. But the windshield is that I'm in this vehicle now, and there's so many more places for me to go. Well, how do I know that? Because I know where I got from, and I can take a different trajectory today.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Dr. Laura, I know that there's a lot more information and you have so many resources for the audience members. How can people connect with you further and kind of follow you and go from
Come
there?
to my website, www.drlauracobb.lifecoach.com. And that's Dr. Laura Cobb, lifecoach.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll put all the details that you've given me in the chat box and the description for our audience members to look at it. Guys, if you have not already done so, make sure that you click subscribe so you get notified of the latest information and the experts and the gifts that they bring to our channel. But I definitely urge you to go in the description and check and connect and reach out to Dr. Laura and find out ways where you can benefit and also role model the behavior that it is important for us to connect and network with those around us, resources, sources of inspiration, so that our kids also learn that they're not alone, that there's always help for them, and that all they have to do is look for it in the many different venues that nowadays is available to them. I definitely encourage you to do that. Once again, Dr. Laura, I really appreciate you for being here and sharing of your wisdom. Any final words before we finish?
Hold on, pain ends, baby, because it keeps getting better. Every day it gets better.
I love it. I
You
love
got
it.
this.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys, and join us again for future episodes. Cheers.
Bye.